Okay, welcome to a new episode of Nate's MMA Corner. I'm Nate, and if you watch my show, you're in my corner. Today's episode is a post-fight show for UFC 240 plus current news in the MMA world. Uh, I'll discuss the Cyborg issue. That is something that people are talking about right now and kind of interested to discuss and hear about. So I thought this will be kind of a doubleheader episode where I'll do just a post-fight rundown of 240 and then discuss that for a moment. Anyway, so post-fight rundown of UFC 240 main card. Here we go. So in the featherweight main event title fight for the UFC featherweight title fight, Max Holloway successfully defended his belt by unanimous decision over Frankie Edgar. This fight was pretty much what I felt it was. Holloway outlanded Edgar, outpointed him pretty decisively. One judge had it pretty close, 48-47, but yeah, I mean, I would say that was pretty debatable. I would say Edgar had, I think, maybe one round, which is like the first round maybe. So I agree with one of the judges, 49-46. I think that's fair. 50-45 seems pretty extreme because I think Edgar at least won a round. Maybe two, but if I were a judge, I would have said I think round one was it. But nonetheless, the right person won on the scorecards, which is what matters. And Max Holloway is still your UFC featherweight champ. And I think Alexander Volkanovski is a great next contender or another top-ranked featherweight, whoever's up there for Max. But yeah, that should be a good fight. So Max Holloway is still your UFC champion. And then in the women's featherweight division, we have Cris Cyborg versus Felicia Spencer. Cyborg won unanimous decision, just pretty much clearly outclassed in the cage. Felicia Spencer won every round decisively, outstriking her pretty decisively, and it was pretty much ground and pound and pounding out on the stand-up, and looked very impressive. And I think this fight sets her up for a good contract in another promotion. So good job, Cris Cyborg. Then in the welterweight division, we have Geoff Neal versus Nico Price. This one, I pretty much called this one as it is. I knew Geoff Neal was going to win. I said on my pre-fight show, Nico Price very talented, but Geoff Neal, whole another story. And he won TKO punches round 2. Good job, Neal, and I can't wait to see more of him in the welterweight division because I think we need a lot of excitement right now in the welterweight division. I've been very critical of it. I think Colby Covington's awesome and a couple other welterweights, but I'm kind of in la-di-da land with the welterweights right now. Some of the matchups, I mean, they make sense. Most of the matchups make sense, but it's just the stories behind it of who wins and who goes where. How much do I really care? It just I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's not that there's not talent at welterweight. There's talent in the UFC welterweight division, obviously, but it's just, do I find the matchups intriguing? That's another story. And I don't know what can be done about it, but I think Geoff Neal, being kind of the newbie in the welterweight division, UFC welterweight division, coming off Contender Series, makes it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Then in the lightweight division, we had Arman Tsarukyan versus Olivier Aubin Mercier. You know, I didn't realize Olivier had so many losses in the UFC until this fight, but yeah, he's had some losses in the UFC, and I think this Arman winning this fight by unanimous decision, I think it was 2 rounds to 1 round. I think Olivier won one of the rounds. Can't remember which one, but there's one round where he won. And yeah, this was a good fight for Arman, a good name opponent in the UFC, a durable veteran, longtime veteran in Olivier, coming from Ultimate Fighter Nations, representing Team Canada. So this is a good name win for Arman to really jumpstart his UFC career. Then in the middleweight division, we had Krzysztof Jotko defeat Marc-Andre Barriault. And this one, Jotko, he needed this win bad, I think, in my opinion, in the UFC middleweight division, and he won split decision. I think this really helps him stay relevant in the middleweight division. Krzysztof Jotko definitely, I think, should get a top 15 guy in his next fight at this point. So it's a good win to get his name back up there, and get him on track to. I mean, he's not title contention, but 2 or 3 good solid wins, we'll be talking about it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. And I think the middleweight division's interesting right now with Israel being the interim champ, and then Whitaker being the regular champ. So that's pretty good. So yeah, there's that's the post-fight rundown of the main card, and then so on to the Chris Cyborg situation. So I think Scott Coker will be more than happy to take Chris Cyborg into Bellator. I think there's some good matchups for Cyborg in Bellator, and she can make some good money in Bellator. And Cyborg's already been UFC champ, and why not go after the Bellator title now? I mean, Julia Budd versus Cyborg. I think that would be a good matchup. So Cyborg going to Bellator, that would just be a that would just be sheer fun to watch. And I mean, Julia Budd is Julia Budd's never fought Cyborg, so and people forget how talented Julia Budd is. I mean, she's only lost to Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey. She's beat everyone else, and so it is what it is. If you can make Cyborg versus Nunes too, or put Cyborg against another name opponent in UFC, how is this any different than Cyborg fighting, Jane Doe in Bellator versus Jane Doe, newbie UFC fighter? I think, it's pretty much, you're pretty much trading an orange for the same quality orange for the same quality apple. Apples and oranges, so to speak. I think so. There's still a good future in the MMA world for Cyborg. As a fan of Cyborg, I'm intrigued by this. I think it's a good storytelling thing. Obviously, I think Bellator would give her a good deal. I think Scott Coker would give her a good deal, and then give her either immediate title shot at featherweight, or one match, win that, and then title shot. Give her a squash match, and then she wins that, and then title fight. And then now we could be saying Cyborg's been Invicta champion, UFC champion, and Bellator champion. So, what's so bad in that? So her leaving UFC, don't really think of it as the worst thing in the world, in my opinion. Would I like to see her stay in UFC? Yeah, of course. But would I also like to see her win another belt in a Bellator title? Yeah, that would be interesting too. So that's my thoughts on it. Is it's interesting one way or another. So there's my 2 cents. But anyways, that wraps up this fight, this episode, and then stay tuned for my pre-fight for UFC on ESPN, Covington versus Lawler. That's going to be real fun. And until then, see ya.